huge thank you to CIBC for making We Get It possible.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Get It Season 3, Episode 5. I can't believe we're already at Episode 5 thus far, but I'm very, very excited to get into things, and hopefully everybody is watching today on, what day would it be? Monday, right at the end of February, Monday, February 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern when this launches and drops. So a very nice way to end February with a good friend of mine, and I feel like a good friend of a lot of people who hopefully will be watching this today. Kayla Tremblett, a absolute bombshell when it comes to just making her way into the YACC community, stirring things up and really getting involved as much as possible. Kayla and I met a few years back, and she is right now in Port Credit, Ontario, and has made some really cool impacts in YACC, and definitely going to get into a lot of that and some small business entrepreneurship conversation today as well. So welcome, Kayla. Very, very excited to have you on board today.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to have a good convo. So we'll get into the first question that I normally tend to ask everybody that jumps on board. So what would be like 3 words you'd use to describe yourself?
Okay. The first word that comes to mind is stubborn, but I feel like I want to make that a little bit more positive and just say determined. So determined, spontaneous, and enigmatic, I would say, are 3 pretty good words to describe me.
Yes. I'm hoping that you had thought about those, because those are very good.
Yeah.
Those would be very spontaneous words to come up with too, though. So I mean, that in itself is pretty inception worthy. I like that, but I would tend to agree. That's awesome. Perfect. So I mean, I know a lot of people probably have an idea of who you might be. You're pretty prominent within YACC for a few different reasons, but for those who might not know or are new to the community, can you tell us a little bit about your cancer story, maybe from like diagnosis to kind of where you are at right now?
Of course. So I was first diagnosed back in 2014. I think November was like my official diagnosis. I think we have the same diagnosis date, actually, like November 21st, right?
We do, exact same day.
Yeah, so that was when I was officially diagnosed. I was 21. I was in my 3rd year of university, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 classical Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I really just jumped into my treatment right away. I remember sitting in the doctor's office, and the doctor was like, "So when do you want to start your treatment?" And I'm like, "Tomorrow." I don't think I really thought about it like more than, all right, this is another thing that I have to just do, and I have to get through it, and we're going to be fine. So fast forward 7 months of chemotherapy and then a month of radiation. And then I kind of got a bit of a break. You settle down, you see how everything's working. I went back in for a checkup about 4 months later, and I found out that I'd actually relapsed with a new form of cancer called gray zone lymphoma. And for those who don't know what that is, it's kind of a mutated form of lymphoma where it's got a little bit of all the lymphomas mixed in together. And some of my doctors at that time thought that I might have actually been misdiagnosed, which is why I relapsed so quickly, which was pretty devastating news for me. I was 22 at the time. It was 2015. I was in my 4th year of university, and I thought that I was done. Right? You're like, oh, I'm in the clear, I'm good. And then you get hit with, actually, you're not. Yeah. And so at the time, the only real treatment plan left for me was a stem cell transplant and high dose chemotherapy. And so that's what I ended up doing. I did chemotherapy for 3 months. I did a stem cell transplant with my own stem cells. And then I had about a month of radiation afterwards. And I was announced no sign of disease in 2016, June, actually right before I graduated university. So I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, yes, I can graduate, and I got a clean bill of health. And this year, this is 2022. In 2021, I celebrated 5 years, which now you can officially say, or I can officially say, that I'm in remission. And so it was, I guess, a 2-year treatment period, and then maybe like a 3 to 4 year recovery period of just recovering from the chemo and the radiation and trying to just get my mind and body and spirit back to a place where I was really comfortable with kind of just resuming or picking up my life where it left off. But as we all know, it's very hard to just pick everything up from where
Yeah.
you left it when you're diagnosed with cancer at such a young age.
100%.
Yeah.
No, and then congrats. I mean, I know we've probably talked about this, but it's the second person I think I've talked to within the last 5 episodes that has been in some form of remission, like within the last little while. So it's awesome to hear. And I'm very happy for you as like friends, just more as friends than anything, but very incredible. And like you said, I mean, it obviously you can't just pick things back up, even when you are feeling confident and you're maybe in treatment, but you're nearing the end of it. And it sounds like, similar to myself, the first time you kind of joined YACC and the first time that you and I really met and had the first conversation in person, but also just in general, was when you waited a few years, I think, after initial diagnosis and relapse for 2018, when you attended the first Survivor conference in St. John. So what was that first experience within like the YACC community like? And, how did you feel stepping into this world of like all these different people going through cancer in the community at large?
That's a really great question. So my very first interaction with YACC was in 2017. I went on the retreat to BC. And so that was my very first introduction, where I got to meet for a weekend with a bunch of other cancer survivors or people in their treatment to go through a weekend of healing, I guess you would call it. And so after that is when I found out about the conference that was taking place. And I was like, I think I want to do this. Like, I was a little bit nervous at first. I think a lot of newcomers into YACC who have just heard about it or who are just getting involved, there's a lot of nerves. Like, what's it going to be like? Is this a cancer camp kind of feeling? Like, are we going to like sing Kumbaya and hold hands? And that's what I thought too. I was like, oh my God, this is like way too mushy for me. I'm not into this. But when I got there, I can tell you that I've never felt so comfortable and at home with a bunch of strangers who I've literally never met before. I knew a couple of people from the conference that I had gone, the retreat that I had gone to from the year before. But everyone else was new. I had seen their faces on Facebook and online, but going there and just being like, wow, it was a lot. It was a little bit overwhelming, but at the same time, it was like, you just felt like you were immediately comfortable and at home. And there was a sense of ease that just came over you. Everybody was like laughing and smiling and hugging. And for a bunch of people who are like sick with cancer or who have just finished treatment, it was like, whoa, you never see these kinds of emotions in the hospitals or when you're in recovery, but all of us there together, it was like just a really great feeling. And as the weekend progressed, there were a lot of really great bonding activities and things that we did to get to know each other, as well as our different cancers. We got to sit at tables with people who had the same diagnosis as us. I had never done anything like that before. I didn't know anyone else had cancer, even though like intellectually I knew that, but because I didn't know anyone, I felt like I was the only one. So to be at a table with other people who had lymphoma, like that was wild to me. And it was so nice to talk to people and be like, hey, did this happen to you? Oh my God, yeah, it did. How did you deal with it? And just really make those connections that I would say will last a lifetime. Even if you don't talk to these people every day, they're always there. And no matter how much time has passed, you can hit one of them up on Facebook or email or text them. And it's just like no time has passed. And it's such a great support system that I never knew that I needed until I had it. And then I was like, I need this forever, I need that connection forever. So it was really, really beautiful,
Yeah, totally. No, and I mean, like, you would never even find out that one fact that we talked about earlier. You and I have like the same exact diagnosis date, which is insane. Like the odds in life of that happening aren't as crazy, but like the fact that we, live close to each other, became friends, and then found that out, it's like, that's so crazy. And I mean, that's a very unique situation, but I feel like there's a lot of people who have that, especially when you're finding you're sitting at tables of people diagnosed with the same form of cancer or very similar and have gone through the same type of chemotherapy or radiation treatment. So there's that instant bond, which I find incredible. And then there's also this sometimes it's maybe more innate, or it's something that you pick up on with a lot of people within the community, that you want to kind of take it a step further. So after the first and I guess second experience being the conference and then moving forward, when did you kind of decide that you wanted to get a little bit more involved in the community, whether it be just for YACC or more just in the cancer community in general, in like a leadership role, and not just someone who attended the event? So for example, things like Localife, and I think in 2020 being sort of that supporter with a few others for the retreat yourself. When did you kind of decide, like, I want to kind of take a step ahead and be more in a leadership position?
This is like a really interesting question for me because I would
Yeah.
say that I was so nervous about both of my first interactions with YACC, and I was still very nervous about sharing my story, sharing my feelings, thoughts, and emotions for quite a while after. I was very comfortable at the conference, but that is a very safe place to be. And then when you're back in your own life and your own routine, it is different, right? You don't have
Yeah.
those people that you can just talk to, turn to, and talk to. Yes, you can definitely do it digitally, but I was still pretty nervous about sharing everything. I felt very ashamed still that I had cancer and that I went through all that. Um, so before I even became more involved with YACC, what I started to do, part of my own healing, but also just to become more comfortable with it, is I started a blog and a YouTube channel where I would share my story, share things that I was going through, things that I had went through, and things that I was still learning as now a
Mhm.
survivor, in active recovery. And I did that for about a year before I really got more involved with YACC. And by that point, I was a lot more confident in myself. It had been 3 years since I finished my treatment, and I had no signs of disease. So I was starting to just feel like me again. And that was the point where I got more involved with YACC in a peer facilitator role. So it was 2019. I believe it was either March or April. I can't remember. Maybe end of March, beginning of April. There was a retreat in Ontario, similar to the retreat I went to in BC.
Mhm.
And Kareen, who is one of the leaders, part of YACC, um, she actually reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in coming along on the retreat and basically helping people the way I was helped on my retreat, being a support for them, sharing my story to make them more comfortable for sharing theirs. And I thought that that was such a beautiful thing. And I was so excited to do it because that's what I needed to start my healing journey. And I wanted to be that person for some, or hopefully be that person for somebody else,
Yeah.
right? I think all of us, once we get into this place where we feel, I don't want to say the word empowered by cancer, but we feel empowered by who we are after. We want to share that. We want to spread that to somebody else. So I was finally in a place to do that. And I was just super excited. I'd also done a little bit of virtual peer support for some people just through like emails and chats, but this was my
Yeah.
first in-person experience. And it was really amazing. I was nervous again to really share my full scope of my story. Um, but I made so many great connections. And after the retreat was over, I actually got a few letters from some of the participants who were part of the retreat saying how my story inspired them. My personality really made them feel hopeful. They were happy to meet somebody who seemed to be really healing well after the treatment, but also who was very honest about how, excuse my French, fucked up they still really were.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I
For
really
sure.
talk about, is that it is okay to not be okay. And no matter how long after you're done your treatment, I don't think you're ever fully healed from it. There are still some ghosts that are part of your life. And that was something that I really made clear to talk about. And a lot of people really connected with that. And then I was invited back in 2020 to become another peer supporter, which is actually the retreat that you went to as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
again in Ontario. And shortly after that, I became the leader for Localife Toronto. And unfortunately, it was right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I really only had like a month to prepare myself, and then everything went virtual. So it was a little bit rocky in the beginning. And I was the only one running the program. So it was a lot of learning. But everyone was super supportive. And after a year of doing everything, you actually joined me, which
Did.
has been the best thing to happen with me joining YACC, is having somebody who not only am I great friends with and who has very similar experiences that I do, but we just make such a good powerhouse team.
Mhm.
I feel like we really inspire a lot of people to come out and join us and meet new yackers and to just get more involved with sharing their story.
Yeah, 1000%. No, and it's funny, like that whole, I'm glad it made you feel more empowering. 'Cause it's funny because it's a two-way street. I think if people see someone who is in a leadership role that is confident in themselves, or at least has built up this level of comfort within the community and feels a little bit better about themselves, they feel more confident kind of expressing their story, reaching out for support, reducing their isolation. And then the person who's leading it, like yourself, Kayla, gets that like, endorphin rush to say, okay, well,
Yeah,
now everyone else is understanding how I feel, so I'm going to continue. So it's like kind of a cool cycle how that works.
exactly.
I don't know. Yeah, it's really awesome. And I mean, turning to local life, because it's kind of what we talked about at the end there. Absolutely. I think you and I are a powerhouse kind of like
Okay.
force. I love it. That's fine. I
Sorry.
think no, don't even worry. I love guests on the pod. It's always nice to have like a featured guest. So don't even worry. But no, I mean, Local Life, it's awesome. I think you and I make a great tag team, and I hope Local Life Toronto, whoever's watching this, finds the same. We definitely try and bring some fun programming. And for those who don't know what Local Life is, it's basically a fun social activity-based group by YACC volunteers. And we currently have 8 cities that participate. So there's Toronto, of course. We have Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, St. John's, Vancouver, Victoria, and Winnipeg. So if you're within that region, it's very good. I mean, it's kind of like monthly, either in-person or virtual events that we all get together and kind of catch up and really just bond over similar experiences and just get away from it all. So kind of nice to hang out with your fellow yackers. And I mean, you kind of touched on it already, Kayla, but like, why did you want to get involved with Local Life specifically? Like, what was it about the program that was interesting to you?
So it's funny. I never actually went to any local life events prior to one of the big cancer hookups right before I interviewed to become a volunteer. And the timing just okay, she's back. Anyways, the timing just never worked with my schedule. And one of the things that I really wanted to bring to local life was programming that worked for the schedules that young adults tend to have. Something
Mhm.
that I felt a lot during my treatment and even afterwards was that any programs that I really wanted to participate in were never really available for the times that I was free. As a young adult, we're often working. Sometimes we work 2 jobs. It's just part of the grind of trying to figure out what you want in life. And I thought that we could offer more variety to people, and also bring the program not just for Toronto, but a little bit for the West End Toronto, which is where I live.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to open up that space. And that was something that I did talk about during my interview. And I think that really resonated with some of the people at YACC. And a few people, I'm not trying to like boast or anything, but a few people were dropping hints that they wanted me to become a leader because I'm just kind of loud and like I'm very optimistic and I love to have fun and I like to do things with people and activities. And they were like saying that I would be a good fit for the role because that's what we plan to do in YACC. We want to create events for people that they can come out to. And sometimes we don't even talk about cancer. It's like, it's
No,
not even on the agenda. We just go out, we have a good time, we have some laughs, we have some food, we do an event, and then everyone just feels good for the rest of the day until the next event. So there was a lot of encouragement from people already within YACC and in other local life roles who really wanted me to kind of become a leader so that I could connect more with people and inspire people to leave an impression. And that was really nice confidence boost, not only for myself, but
totally.
also for me to actually take that step to do more for YACC and to also do more for myself. I find it very therapeutic to plan events for people that bring people together to spark joy. That's something that I've always been passionate about. I'm definitely a planner and a doer. I love that. And so this just seemed like a really good fit for me. And I mean, I got the job. So I think that YACC felt the
Hopefully.
same way about all of that.
Yeah, totally. I can vouch for you too. I mean, it's like a perfect fit. When you announced that you were kind of taking over in Local Life as a leader, so I think it worked out perfectly. And obviously now we kind of tag team it. But yeah, and it's awesome. Like that was the one thing I'm glad you mentioned. It sometimes it's got nothing to do with cancer. You just have fun with people with a similar background. And if you drop a hint, or, you're like, oh yeah, like I just don't feel very good today because I took these steroids, or I, just had chemo yesterday. Doesn't stir up another topic of conversation. It's just so fluid that it's easy to have those conversations. Yeah. So that's why I think it's so important, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, for those who might be hesitant, like to attend an event, doesn't have to be Localife, but we touched on pretty much every one of the events for YACC, like Retreat Yourself, the Big Cancer Hookup Conference, whether it's virtually or in person. If someone isn't feeling confident, or they're not sure, what advice, if any, would you give to someone, or some encouragement to maybe see if they're interested in joining and attending something like that?
If you're nervous and you're just really not sure what it's about, what's happening, reach out to one of the Localife leaders for your city.
Yeah.
Just send them an email or a message on Facebook, and just let them know that you're nervous, but that you really want to try something like this. I've actually gotten a couple of messages from people very similar to that they want to, but they're like, I don't know what to expect. And the unknown is scary for a lot of people, right? So just reach out. And every Localife leader that I know across Canada, we're all super friendly. We have no problem in taking the time to really talk to you, even having a quick Zoom call and just getting you more comfortable with what we do here so that you're not surprised. That would be the first thing I would tell you to do. And the second thing would be to just take the risk. I haven't met anyone who's ever regretted coming to an event. Everyone really loves some part of it, whether it's the connecting, the event itself, having somebody to just talk to if they're going through a hard time, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's very empowering to take a step like that and do something that, yeah, it can scare you, but it will nourish you in some way as just a human being who's gone through something very traumatic. And this is a really easy way and simple way to make a connection without having to commit super intensely to anything. We have events, we try to have an event every month, and it's very easy. If somebody can't make it, no problem. If you change your mind, no problem. It's something that you can do for yourself that doesn't require a lot of effort. And sometimes that is the key thing for people, is that they just can't handle making the plans and doing it. But in this case, we do it all for you. All you have to do is show up. That's all you have to do. And if you get to an event and you're feeling nervous or uncomfortable, again, just come talk to one of us. We'll be your buddy for the day. It's something that I think will enrich your life in more ways than if you didn't come.
Yes. I love that. That was like I don't know why we didn't, like, that should be on the website.
It should be. You should put this recording as
I know
as the answer.
I'm gonna I'll transcript it and put it down on the website. That's amazing. Heck yeah. And so for those interested as well in Localife, I'm going to throw a link in the show notes and all the details, so you can scroll down and click. And all the individuals who run, the Localife leaders who run the Localife programs in their cities, are all on the website. You can click on each of the cities and find a little bit more out in case you kind of want to take that first step or plunge in. But that was a very good description of what Localife is and why we should get involved. I love it. So
try it.
Nailing it. So we basically covered that good topic. So I definitely want to switch topics to simple ritual, which you obviously know 10 times more about than I do. But when really, like, did you decide, Kayla, that you wanted to run your own small business? Definitely talk about like simple ritual in its essence, but was it always this idea that you personally wanted to run like a small business, or was it more of a recent passion project that came to fruition? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
So I've been an entrepreneur for a while. I'm a graphic designer, and a lot of the jobs that I've worked are contract, freelance. So I do a lot of the work in getting those jobs. So the whole world of entrepreneurship is not something that's new to me. And I would say, so I started a business in 2020. And it was during COVID, which some people are like, girl, you're crazy. And I was like, but I'm up for a challenge. I would say that what really sparked my desire to start Simple Ritual was for me to be able to share my story as a cancer survivor, thriver, activist in a new way. You know, I had been blogging, making videos for a while. I was now part of all these different, you know, activist things as part of YACC. And I had been published a few times in a few online newspapers. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to do something that isn't just telling my story, but it's also giving people a direct link to kind of inspire themselves to maybe make a small change in their life so that they're
Hmm.
really able to focus on what matters. I think something that cancer teaches all of us that maybe you know before, but most of us I don't think do, is to really value and appreciate every day and the time that you have, because it really is a gift. And there are a lot of small things and moments that go unnoticed and uncared about. And it's those things that make your life memorable. It's those memories that you're going to remember when you're old and you're not working anymore that are going to really just resonate and sit with you. And so the business was really born out of this idea to inspire people to make time for themselves, to dedicate a moment to grounding themselves, to being comfortable with dealing with maybe some emotions or some events in their life that have been hard, and not just pushing it to the back burner and leaving it there for another day to deal with, because it kind of becomes a cycle. The more you don't deal with it, the worse things get. And I experienced
Yeah.
that firsthand in my treatment, is that I never dealt with my emotions. I never talked about how I felt. I never really shared with people what was going on. And it caused a lot of emotional trauma and definitely PTSD for me. And so that's really why this business was born, to define moments for yourself and to create simple rituals, ironically, that you can partake in as just a little gift back to yourself and a little bit of kindness.
Totally. Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
And I knew you were kind of always the person who just went for things. So it makes total sense. And again, I want to share the link to the website in the show notes too for everyone who's interested in the business and learning a little bit more about it. And if this answer isn't, if next question I ask is related to kind of cancer, if this isn't the case, then that's fine. But I'm just kind of curious, did cancer and the experience that you had in any way influence your decision to kind of go for it in 2020? Or did it make any impact at all within creating this kind of persona in this business?
So it definitely did. So when
Mhm.
pre-cancer, Kayla was really interested in health and nutrition and holistic living, which is treating the body holistically as a whole and not just different parts of it. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, along with doing my conventional, you know, chemo, radiation, steroids, drugs, all that stuff, I would support my body through naturopathic, you know, remedies, supplements, things that were supporting, you know, my organs, my cognitive health, everything, as, you know, poison was being put into me. So that was something that was very important to me during my treatment, and something that I don't think a lot of people really necessarily know about when they're going through cancer.
Mhm.
Um, the cancer world is changing, but it's still, I think, personally, narrow minded in the sense that it is all about conventional therapies and killing the cancer, which obviously is what we all want. But there's so much more to supporting the body so that you can get through your treatments and not be left in such shambles and rubble at the end. And so I really wanted to take my love and passion for holistic medicine, holistic lifestyles, you know, mindfulness, and just wellness overall, and create a business and a product that not only shared my story, but also inspired people to really consider that our body is all connected to each other. And you can't just treat one part of it without something else needing support as well. And so that's kind of where cancer inspired the business, is that I wanted to create a product that was holistically good for your body, and that when you used it was also good for your spirit, your mind, your soul, and just your connection to yourself. So for people who don't know, Simple Ritual is a business that makes clean burning, toxin free soy and coconut wax candles. Every candle made at Simple Ritual is paraben free, phthalate free, vegan, as well as cruelty free, non toxic. I make everything myself, as well as some members of my family who really help me out. Our company is very sustainable, everything is biodegradable, as well as recyclable and reusable. So I really tried to create a business that didn't only focus on one thing. It focuses on everything that was really important to me during my treatment, and also just important to me as a human being. Like
Mhm.
sustainability is something that I think our world is realizing more and more is a really key factor to conserving our longevity as human beings and protecting our earth. And so that's something that I wanted to implement. So not only does my business support you through the lighting of a candle and whatever you need to light this candle for and make this time for yourself for, but it's also giving back to the world. It's sharing my story as a survivor and hopefully inspiring other people to share theirs, no matter what type of illness you're diagnosed with. And a portion of every proceeds made at Simple Ritual is given back to YACC. So it's a very holistic company, at least I
Yeah.
think it is,
Yeah.
in a story, a philosophy, and also giving back. So it really is holistically kind of covering everything that I was very inspired by during my treatment and after my treatment. And that's something that I have held true to this day, even through all the ups and downs of the business and, things changing in the world. It's something that I've never questioned or never tried to find an alternative for. And
Yeah.
it's something that I really hold really true to myself, is that I want to provide a really high quality product that's going to be safe for people and that's going to make them feel good um, at the same time.
Totally. Yeah, and I think I mean from an outsider's perspective, but someone who has watched you kind of build it over the past 2 years, I think it's very holistic. And you can tell how passionate about it you are from this conversation, but even in just everyday life. So I think it's really cool. A question I didn't actually write down and kind of pose to you, but I know because your own business having it, there's a lot of ups and downs, whether it be with financial or just a lot of time involved in the process. Are you happy that you kind of launched this when you did? And do you feel like you're happy with where it has been over the past 2 years for the most part?
I'm really happy. I launched Simple Ritual, like I said, back in 2020. I had just lost my job due to COVID. It was a new
Mhm.
job, and unfortunately, when you're new to a position, you're kind of the first one to go. Totally understandable. And so I was really down in the dumps. And when I started this business as it was something that really brought me out of that kind of hole that I was digging for myself. Everyone has those I feel sorry for myself moments, but I was kind of in it for a little bit too long. And creating Simple Ritual and the whole process of the idea and the concept and the business plan to the design to the marketing to actually creating the physical product was such a great part of my healing, not only from like just feeling shitty because I lost my job, but actually a healing from cancer because I was doing something that wasn't only just good for me, but was going to be good for other people. And that felt like the equivalent of sharing my story at a survivors conference or a retreat. So it it just felt really good, and it's been met with so much positive reinforcement and enthusiasm from the community. We ship across Canada. I've shipped some stuff to the States even, and we've gotten just so many amazing messages from people telling us how our product has impacted them, whether it was just as simple as lighting it to relax them at the end of the day, or they were going through something tough and they just needed some self-care. It has been a very humbling experience, and it has
Mhm.
given back to me a lot to see other people happy. I talked about earlier, one of the reasons I joined YACC in a more, in more roles than one, was bringing other people happiness. And that's something that Simple Ritual does for me as well. We've definitely gone through some ups and downs, but overall, it's all been worth it. Totally.
Good. I would assume so. Favorite scent, Kayla? There's plenty, but what would you say if you like had to buy one yourself, which you made so many, what would be your favorites? I know it's hard, but or favorites if you had a few.
Oh, that's so hard. Okay. So we've got an original, or like the signature collection, which is available all year. So from that collection, my personal favorite is Lunar, and it's scented
Okay.
with frankincense and lavender. So it's very relaxing. I like to light it when I'm watching TV at night or if I'm reading a book. It really calms me down. Um, we've just launched our spring collection, which is available on the website. And from that collection, We have a candle called Half Past, which is
Right.
peach, mahogany, and pine. It's so awesome. It smells like you're going into a sauna in the middle of the woods on like a cool spring morning. I don't even know. It's just the most beautiful, like woodsy and citrusy and uplifting scent. It feels very invigorating. So I would say those two are my favorites right
Okay,
now.
interesting. And I'm looking at the spring collection as we speak. This Artemis jar with wild figs, cedarwood, and
Oh,
pine.
I know. That
That's a
one
game
is
changer.
actually that one is a favorite that the Simple Ritual community on Instagram wanted to bring back. So I did a vote from last
Oh,
year's collection of scents, and I said, "Hey guys, what scent do you want to see again in the new collection?" I like to bring back something that we've already done and then
yeah.
introduce something new. I feel like it makes people feel a little bit more comfortable in connecting with the new scents. And everybody voted for Artemis. It was like the winner by a landslide. And I was like,
Oh,
all
wow.
right, you guys voted and it's back. And it's a beautiful smell. It's very gender neutral. It really works in any kind of environment. And it's warm and uplifting, a little spicy, and it's very unique, and everybody who buys it loves it.
Nice. Yes. Please check this out. I have bought a few candles already, and I actually have one that I've been meaning to spark up sometime soon and kind of get the apartment more of a coconutty smelling vibe. And
Ooh,
I'm quite
yes,
excited
yes.
because I'll just smell it without lighting it. And I'm just like, I'm looking forward to this time when one of my previous candles burns out. So I'm quite excited for that. So I'll share a little bit more info in the show notes as well, Kayla, just so people can get involved.
That'd be awesome.
Um, Yes, you got it. So a few questions left, but I mean, just kind of transitioning back to getting involved in YACC and like how you've kind of stepped into a few roles for the next wave of yackers that are kind of maybe joining for the first time or have been to a few events and maybe want to take that plunge into maybe making a difference more so than just attending and chatting. What would you say to them and like maybe how to get involved? What would you say or any advice you would give?
I think my biggest piece of advice is share your story.
Mm,
Whatever way that works for you, writing, blogging, videos, doing a speech, submitting your story to, an online source, or even on the news. There's been so many yackers on the news lately. It's been crazy.
yeah, it
But
has
I
been.
would say sharing your story is something that I would really encourage you to do. I didn't know how empowering it was to really share my true story. There's been different versions of my story over the years. When I was first getting into it, I wasn't maybe as honest as I could have been. Just because I was scared. I didn't know how people would react to me sharing something that was like kind of messed up. Like,
Yeah.
my story was a little all over the place, which you can read on my blog if you're interested. And it gave me so much confidence to finally share my true story without any bullshit, without any filters, and just be completely raw and honest. And when I did that, is when I can say I really felt like I had come full circle
Mhm.
in my experience. And I think that for anybody starting out in YACC, being able to share that story with anybody, even if it's just a friend that you meet through YACC, is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself, as well as for other people out in the world. So I would definitely say that is a great way to make a difference. Um, and something else that's really easy is just join one of our events. There's so
Yeah.
many. We have the Yakety Yak late night chats. We have the conference. We have the retreats. We have Localife. And if you're kind of nervous about doing something with a lot of people, then you can always just share your story with YACC. Make a profile, a survivor profile. It's another good way to really empower yourself and share your story in a more relaxed way, I would say. It's very guided. There are questions you can answer, and it's a good way to start your own personal form of healing, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And it's easy. I mean, it's like the first, your own story. So all you have to do is say it. It's not like you have to do any, you don't have to put on a persona. You don't have to act in a way that you wouldn't have thought you would have needed to or had to in the past. You just have to kind of tell the story the way you want to, and you can leave parts out. You could put everything in
Exactly.
there. There's a lot of customization, and it's kind of a nice first step. And like you said, it's healing for both the community and the person sharing it. So I think that's an awesome first kind of step for anybody who wants to get involved.
Yeah.
So The most important question of the episode I ask everybody is, what are your top 3 favorite fruits?
Definitely save the best for last.
Yes.
Okay. Ooh, okay. So this is gonna be probably controversial
Okay.
because these fruits are like just a bit like, I don't know.
Out of there.
Nobody thinks about them. So the first one would be avocado.
Okay.
Can't live without my avocado. Yes, it's a fruit. I will fight anyone who says it's not.
Yeah.
The next one would be blackberries.
Okay.
Again, sometimes bitter, but sometimes sweet, and I'll eat it no matter what way it is. Love that.
Yes.
And the third one, which is weird, but I like it, is papaya. I
Huh.
friggin' love papaya. It's so
Yeah.
underrated. I know people are like, oh, it's like slimy, but like it's so good. It's so good.
Those are solid. Blackberries do not get enough love. I don't think people really buy them
No.
or like even try and seek them out very often. And papaya, yeah, very tasty. I know you've been a proponent of papaya, which is that alliteration in itself is hilarious. For a while now. And no, the texture, some people have texture phobia or very specific, so understandable, but I can't agree. Those are actually some solid choices, and I think those are unique. So I might have to go pick up some blackberries soon because I didn't even think of that. It's a great call.
Oh, and you know what? If it's a little bitter, just put a bit of sugar on it and it'll be fine. Problem
You'll be
solved.
good.
Or
There
put
you
some
go.
ice cream with it. Like there are ways to eat your fruit that are a little bit more fun if you don't just want it to be plain.
Yeah. Just throw the health part out the window and just eat it with ice cream.
Moderation.
Exactly. I love it. Awesome way to end. So Kayla, thanks again for joining. I know you and I've chatted off script and off camera a lot, but it's nice to share a lot more info with the community. And I think sharing stuff about becoming a leader in the cancer community, sharing your story, and like even how, something as difficult as a cancer diagnosis and story can lead to even just becoming your own kind of business owner, or really whatever place you want to take it. So I think there's a lot that people can learn. So thank you very much again for joining. And
thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And thank you for everybody watching. Hope you all enjoyed, whether it's February 28th at 7 when this launches, or whether it's later. Definitely reach out, watch, and look forward to next Monday. Have a wonderful time, everybody, and we'll catch up soon.
Bye.
Bye.